Our phones are important parts of content creation nowadays. But how do you get good sounding audio into your phone for live streaming, Clubhouse, or even phone calls? That is what I'm going to talk about in this video with all the options that we have here on the table, and there are a bunch of them. Some of them are as simple as using your headphone plugs that usually come with your phone or are relatively cheap to buy. Other options include the iRig 2 to incorporate XLR-based microphones from a mixer or other devices into your Clubhouse call, into your Zoom calls, or similar things. This way you can use your phone for high-quality content creation with great sounding audio. And now let's start talking about the options that you have here. Now, the first and most obvious option that is out there is obviously something like your headphone buds. Those are generally already a good idea to use if you, for example, are on a Clubhouse call, because there you then don't have the fear or risk of having any echo, because you have your headphones in and at the same time you have the microphone right next to your body and you can hold the phone however you want. So that's the first step, and probably also one of the cheapest. Now, going up from there, you of course also have things like the Apple AirPods or something like the Bose QC35 that I have right here. And those are actually Bluetooth headphones. So you can wear them and you can be on those calls without any issues and without any cords. However, the downside there is that those batteries can go empty relatively quickly. At least with the AirPods, I have noticed that after a year or two of owning them, the AirPods only hold about half an hour to an hour of a phone call charge. You can do stuff like switch them out in between, but that's of course not necessarily ideal. Now, with some headphones, you can actually also use a cable-bound solution, like for example with the Bose QC right here. I have this cable right here. And then, of course, I will need an Lightning to audio jack adapter because the iPhones don't have that anymore. Now, that wraps up the section of headsets with built-in microphones. But what is if you want to use a microphone and still want to use headsets? There, you actually have a very specific cable that you can use for that purpose. And that is one of the cables that I have right here. It has a TRRS connection on one end, meaning it has the 4 golden rings. And then on the other side, you actually have 2 connections. And in this case, you have a kind of like a pink one, which is the microphone jack. And then you have the green one, which is the headphone jack. So in this case, I could hook up the Bose QC here to the headphone jack. And then on the other side, on the microphone port, I can actually just use whichever microphone I prefer. For example, I could use something like this, which is a lavalier microphone, and that has a normal TRRS connection, so that could be hooked up to the microphone port there. And of course, you can also use something like the Rode Lavalier Go, and the one that I have here is the Rode SmartLav Plus. Now, there's a bit of a tricky thing to keep in mind here. This is the Rode SmartLav Plus, and it is made for smartphone connections. So it has the TRRS connection, which means it has the 4 golden rings right here. However, if you want to use this in combination with an adapter like this, for example, which has the TRRS connection on one end and then microphone and headphones in separate ports right there, then you would actually also have to use an adapter like this. I will have links to everything in the description below, so you can check them out there. But basically, this adapter takes a TRRS connection on one end and makes it a normal TRS connection, and then it only has 3 golden rings. Now, this is necessary because these types of connections right here are also TRS-based and not TRRS-based. And so you just want to make sure to know the difference there and work with that. Now, if you just use something like the SmartLav Plus in a phone call, you might end up not hearing the other person anymore. That is because the phone thinks there is a headphone set connected, but there is actually not a headphone set connected and only a microphone. So in that case, you might have to either try to set the setting to be on speakerphone or something similar and still use this, or you could try to go into the settings and set your headphone as a Bluetooth headphone, for example. But generally speaking, if you want to use something like this, I would recommend a cable-bound solution, and that would be the one that I already covered right here, this one, and then you're good to go. This solution with this splitter cable, by the way, also works if you want to use a microphone like, for example, the Rode Wireless Go, the Rode Video Micro that I have right here, and you could even use something like the Rode Video Mic NTG. Now, the thing about these microphones that I just mentioned here is that they are all made for direct contact with a camera or a smartphone. That means that they are providing a camera or a smartphone-ready level, and that way the phone will just pick those sounds up, and also you can use those in phone calls and similar things. Now, if you want to step it up a little bit to bigger microphones and higher-end equipment, like for example the Shure Beta 57A that I have in the background right there, that is a microphone that is actually based on XLR, and this here is the end that usually goes into the audio recorder. These types of microphones are generally made to connect to devices like the Zoom H5 that I have right here, or my audio recorder that I usually use for my recordings here in the studio with its 6 microphone imports via XLR. Now, these recorders are great for audio recording and, of course, also for podcast recording. And especially if you want to do podcast recording, then these might be really interesting because you can hook up those types of microphones that are usually used in broadcast environments and such things. However, these devices can bring up a challenge when you want to integrate this into your Clubhouse or a phone call integration. With certain devices, you might be able to use the headphone jack to simply route the audio from this device to your smartphone. However, then you are also losing the ability to still hear the other person. That issue might be circumvented by using an adapter or a splitter like this, where you can put in the microphone and connect this to the headphone jack here and then have a separate set of headphones. However, then you can't really monitor yourself. And the line out generally is too loud for smartphones to handle in calls. So that is something that usually does not work as well. Now, to integrate devices like the Zoom H5, H6, or H8, or the Zoom F6, I will have 2 dedicated videos for each of these categories. So the F6 will have a video and the Zoom H5 will have a video, because there are specific settings for each of these devices that you might want to set to especially be able to have a mix-minus feature so that you can monitor yourself, record the audio coming from your phone, and also send the audio from your high-end microphone back to the phone. So this is something that I will cover in a specific video. And it will also be necessary to get a little bit of an upgrade there, because this setup basically needs something like the iRig, because this device can actually take a line-level signal and turn it into a mic-level signal. I've tried many different things, and this here has been the solution that worked for me the best. So that's something that we are going to cover in those other videos. But there's one more category of devices that I want to cover in this video, and that's the devices that are made for podcasting with the ability to also integrate phone calls. The 2 devices that come to mind are the Zoom PodTrack P4 and P8, as well as the Rodecaster Pro. Those are basically recorders with features like the Zoom F6 with XLR inputs, recording capabilities, and much, much more. But the special thing about these recorders, the P4, P8, and Rodecaster, is that they are made for podcasting. And especially, they have a feature that is extremely important in the context of this video, and that's the phone call integration with a TRRS cable. And with all 3 of the P4 and the P8, as well as the Rodecaster, you have the ability to connect the phone with a TRRS connection, and with an iPhone, of course, with the Lightning to TRRS adapter, to connect all of that together and actually have a phone call integration where you can hear the person being on the call with you, as well as everybody that is connected to that device and the sound pads, for example. However, the person on the other end, so the person that is doing the phone call, or in case of the Clubhouse room, the whole room of Clubhouse listeners, they all can hear what you are producing minus themselves. I have a video specifically about the phone call integration with the PodTrack P4 that is linked up here as well as down in the description below. And I also have a video comparing the PodTrack P4 to the Rodecaster Pro, because they are different in certain aspects, and especially they are different in terms of their price. So if you're planning to do more podcasting and integrate phone calls, and that's why you checked out this video, I would highly recommend checking those 2 out, because if you don't have anything set up yet, then maybe it is the best idea to just choose one of these 2 audio recorders specifically made for podcast recording and with the feature of phone call integrations. However, if you already have an audio recorder like the H5, the F6, or H8, or similar audio recorders, then I would recommend you to check out the integrations that I have available on the channel with the iRig, because that's definitely something that might be interesting to you, to see how you can hook all of that up with a mix minus functionality, and also using those in your phone calls and Clubhouse rooms, Zoom calls, and similar. Now that's my overview of how you can get better quality audio into your smartphone. If you want to learn more about any of these setups, you might want to check out the description below, because I have covered a couple of these already on my channel, and I will have links there below. If you can't find it there, or you have any other questions, you can also leave a comment in the comment section down below. If this video was helpful for you, I would appreciate a thumbs up. That helps out a lot with the YouTube algorithm. And with all that said, I hope you have an amazing day. Record better sound on your smartphone, and I will see you in the next one. Oh, there are also 2 other videos that you can continue watching if you haven't had enough. Ciao, ciao!